Now it seems that the war drums are getting louder than ever as the war now enters its 15th day, and the report on the situation on Kharg Island after the US attack, where Iranian media reports say that multiple explosions were heard on the island during these attacks, and during these attacks the enemy attempted to damage the army's defenses, the Goshen naval base and the airport control tower and the continental shelf helicopter hangar as well. Field observations also indicate that there was thick smoke that could be seen rising from the island. So why exactly Kharg Island matters the most for Iran? Because why it is being also touted to be one of Iran's oil lifeline. It is called the Iran's crown jewel that has now been attacked, and the same was mentioned by President Trump in his post. And as far as Kharg Island, its location here is concerned, it accounts for nearly 90% of the crude export. So it is heavily guarded. There is a lot of secrecy involving when it comes to this island as well. And as far as this island is concerned, it handles approximately 2% of the global oil supply. Iran's most sensitive economic zones and these targets that have now been made, both militarily and also as far as when it comes to oil reserves are concerned. And this is there. Lying in the very area when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, this very choke point that is now being blocked by Iran. So that impact that we are looking at as far as the supply of oil by other Gulf nations are also concerned. Let's also in the meantime talk about the sensitivity that has now been attached to the Kharg Island. Major General Sivach is connected with us. Good morning to you. What is your opinion? Because any strike on the Kharg Island could actually severely damage Iran's finances. Should an attack not only, affect the country's government in Tehran, but will it also undermine the viability of any future government that might emerge later?
The point is the Kharg Island is very vital. It is sitting on the mouth of Strait of Hormuz. And Iran has already blocked the Strait of Hormuz. Only the limited ships are being allowed by that, mainly the Chinese. And also the two Indian ships have been allowed. So the point today is that the U.S. want to make sure the Strait Hormuz is basically operational and it is open for shipping. And the Kharg Island dominates the Strait of Hormuz. In case U.S. takes this Kharg Island, then the movement of the ships in the Strait of Hormuz can be smooth. So this is what the strategy as on today U.S. is following it, that it wants to now basically ensure that in the first phase it basically dominates Kharg Island because from there only the Iran export also goes. The oil export goes mainly from Kharg Island only. Second thing is subsequently they may occupy Kharg Island so that they can dominate the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran will not able to interfere in the movement of the ships in this Strait of Hormuz. This is the strategy of U.S. U.S. wants to keep the Strait of Hormuz open in any way. And now that's why it is not only moving certain naval assets from basically from Pacific toward the place where the war is taking place in the Middle East to ensure that the smooth movement of ships in the Strait of Hormuz. And for that, Kharg Island is the first priority. Once they make sure that the Iran also feel adverse effects and their capacity of exporting oil also been affected adversely. Also that they will not able to then carry out a blockade of Strait Hormuz. Therefore, this Kharg Island is very important for U.S. and U.S. is now going on a strategy. Whatever it may come, they will like to keep a Strait of Hormuz because remember in the world, everyone is thinking that today the Iran holds the key to this war, not the U.S. Donald Trump has been telling that the Strait of Hormuz will remain open, but actually it has not been open. It is still been attacked, and there are mines which have been put. There are also fast-moving boats which are
unmanned. So this is coming as a warning, Sivach, because Donald Trump has said that only military infrastructure that has been struck, but if Iran continues to block the Strait of Hormuz, then he is ready to even reconsider his decision. Thank you very much for your point of view, sir. But when we talk about Iran, was it anticipating such strikes by the US? Because it has now been signaling that it was prepared. As far as when it comes to these developments, what we are getting to know through reports that the volume of oil loading from the embedded storage tanks on Kharg Island increased around 1.5 times over the past month. And it appears that Iran, by rapidly emptying the Kharg tanks, had prepared for this possible scenario of an attack on the island and had devised foreign effective measures for it. So the island, which actually hosts the large oil storage tanks and exports infrastructure, as far as when it comes to thousands for workers is also concerned, these are the refineries, Srinjoy, and the depots that also underscores this very unusual landscape that surrounds one of Iran's most valuable assets. But it seems that Iran this time was prepared.
Yes, if they'd emptied out the tanks, it means that they weren't anticipating trouble. They also saw the warning signs. The Abraham Lincoln had come close. The Gerald Ford was coming. So it was very clear that the Americans were massing troops. There were B-2 bombers in Diego Garcia. And after the time that the Lincoln came, you saw more warships coming in, 6 as a matter of fact, before the Gerald Ford arrived. So these were warning signals. So they said, the Iranians asked themselves, what are our weaknesses? And they saw that Kharg Island could be a weakness. They said, why? Well, the best way to deal with this is to ship out all the oil that they had, or as much of the oil that could be shipped out, and the earlier the better. So once they did that, they actually saved that oil from being destroyed. So as a result, this oil has already gone to customers wherever they are, whether it's the Chinese or whoever. So the point is that when the strikes happen, if the oil facilities are hit, they will not strike lots and lots of oil.
Well, it is also known to be the Forbidden Island because of its strict military control. As far as, this area that used to process around 90% of Iran's crude exports while guarding, when it comes to the millennia of human history, it seems that Iran this time was well prepared and was anticipating such strikes on part of the U.S.